Call this public hearing to order.
I don't think so because
Welcome everybody here and on Zoom and wherever you are. We've been doing some scrambling since yesterday. I say we, Bagel and Broadus and the long-term recovery team, saying, okay, you want a little more? Let's look at a little more for the future courthouse. I'm going to have to leave. I have a meeting with Congressman Cloud in a few minutes, so I'm going to turn it over to William and we'll get started. William? All right.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate that so much. As the judge indicated yesterday, we made a presentation on one of the core recovery projects, which is the replacement of the courthouse. Harvey was very rude. He came and destroyed your home. And so we have been working very, very hard with FEMA, with your insurance, with multiple other agencies to try to find resources necessary to put you back into a bigger, better place. And we think we're on track with that. And as we said yesterday, we had presented our kind of scaled down model based on what our projections were and the available budget. Thanks to the Commissioner's Court, we have a little more room to operate. And so now we're going back to the more full 55 to 56,000 square foot model. We are here to kind of talk about that and lay that out for you. Paul is going to kind of walk you through that with PGAL. I'd like to make just a few comments before we get to that. First of all, once Paul finishes the core of his presentation, he and I are going to have kind of a Q&A session to make sure that I bring out some of the points that the public may be interested in, some questions that people have asked from time to time. And so we'll have that dialogue. I'm also going to then cover the NEPA requirements, which is the National Environmental Policy Act. We are required as receiving the federal funds to get a NEPA compliance certificate on this effort. And we do have a draft report, and I'll be mentioning that. In addition, I will want to ask the commissioners if they have any questions. And then we will go to the public to see if they had any questions. And thanks to my new best friend, Colin, the IT director, he said he's going to turn on the chat feature at some point in the meeting, and people who have questions that are listening online, they can chat their questions in, and we will take those questions one at a time and try to respond as best we can. If we don't know the answer, we won't make it up. We will write it down, and we will get back to you, and we're going to post all of the Q's and A's from that session online. In addition, we will be, we've already posted some of the presentations that have been made, and we're going to update them through tomorrow. I think there's also going to be a fact sheet that we have developed talking about some of the financing and some of the round points of the project, the timelines, schedules, and things like that. So we want, our purpose here is to let people know how we're spending their money, because we want to be wise stewards over those resources, and we want to do the very best job and deliver you a project that you'd be very, very proud of for many, many years. So that's our purpose today, and that's where we're going. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul, let him kind of hit the highlights, and then he and I will have a little dialogue on some of the key questions that I want to clear up. And then once I'm finished with that, Paul, I'll need to go into the NEPA conversation, and then we'll go to the commission and then out to the public. All right.
That's what you look like. Very good. Thank you, William, and thank you, Judge and Commissioners, again for having me here for this slightly amended presentation from yesterday. So yesterday we went, I'm going to go over much of the same things that we talked about yesterday in terms of the overall design and where we are at this stage. As William mentioned, we presented yesterday about a 46,500 square foot footprint or square footage for the building. And today we have some other plans here that were produced prior to that were around the 56,000 square foot range for the building. And based on some of the comments and things yesterday from commissioners, we may be going back more to a square footage similar to that. Again, they are all in process. And part of our process was to work with all of the different departments to go over their needs, to try to meet their needs. And we feel like that 55,000 square foot footprint did. All of those drawings were produced before the CM agent got on board. And so for the last 6 weeks or so, that's been what we've been going through in terms of pricing that, making sure that we could get into the roughly $20 million project budget that we had before. So these plans that I'm going to present today are around 55,000 square feet, and we do need to update the exterior elevations because the ones I showed yesterday were for a 2-story building. But I will have to say that we did learn a lot in going through that process. And again, with the CM agent's assistance, we really looked at ways where we can save money on the building, looked at ways where we can still provide the wind resistance and storm resistance and the finished floor elevation of the building while cutting some costs in other areas. So I think as we move forward, if we're given the go ahead to move forward with that 55,000 square foot or thereabout footprint, we will still take some of those lessons in and use some of those things that we've learned to make it economical as possible. So, Colin, if you can get the presentation started. Ready to go? Let's see. Might still be thinking. So this building, it's on. This building is a project that PGAL and Architectus did. It was a renovation up in Harris County, but strangely enough, it has some similar characteristics in the design. It was a historic restoration of the Leonel Castillo Community Center in Harris County, but gives a similar flavor to some of the elevations that we presented yesterday. Okay, there we go. So again, in terms of the overall site plan and funding sources, the pink here up on the top is the courthouse and its site with Sallyport Sallyport in the back on this side for prisoner transfer, and then this parking area will be for judges and elected officials. The area in green, both this parking area over here as well as the community building and what we're calling Celebration Plaza. That is all in a separate funding source through CDBG DR funding and the GLO. So that is in essence almost being treated as a separate project. And then this is the City Hall in the blue down here, as well as the storm water improvements that are being made along Concho Boulevard or Concho Street, excuse me. And then just another rendered site plan. We are looking at, different landscaping elements and planting materials that can go in the plaza there. And the design for that is in process as well as looking at, potentially different color for the paving surfaces there, different colors and materials. But essentially, the public will park here and then have a walkway across the street to get either to the courthouse, the city hall, or the community building. And there is existing parking around that block right now, around the perimeter of it, that we're looking to maintain. So as I mentioned before, the floor plans that I presented yesterday were around, that was a 2-story building at about 46,000 square feet. So this is the first floor plan for the 55,000 square foot building. And we have hard copies of these plans back in the back of the room here for afterwards if you want to take a closer look. But essentially for this scheme, we have the JP courts and their administrative areas and the constable's offices over here. Over here, we have the county clerk's office with the public windows up here in front. And then this is the district clerk's office, again, with the public windows area there. Let's see, in the center here, we have Veterans Affairs. And I believe this is the indigent care department. And let's see, so second floor, this is the district and county court floor mainly. It also has the county district attorney's office over here in the pink. This over here is the employee break area, district court judge and judge's chambers and jury deliberation back here in this corner. Same thing with the county court of law, judge and jury deliberation. And then we also have the grand jury over on this side. As I mentioned before, this is a 3-story scheme. So on the 3rd floor, going clockwise, we have auditor's office here. We have treasurer's office here, and then this is human resources on this floor. And then we have IT and facilities and the county judge's office. And in this scheme, we have a separate commissioner's court. The scheme I showed yesterday had anticipated that the commissioner's court would share the JP court on the 1st floor. So this one has a separate commissioner's court on the 3rd floor. And this is the same elevation I showed yesterday. So again, I'm kind of a coastal Mediterranean look to the building. We envisioned the base material to be a very durable masonry or, Larry Erslick with architects as mentioned yesterday, potentially a shellcrete type product that where you can see some oyster shells in the aggregate. We feel that would be very a regional material that we could use. We have the archways either side of the main entry tower. And obviously we will need to revise this for the 3-story scheme, but I feel it's come a long way, and we went through several different schemes on the exterior elevations, and I think this is very appropriate for this area. So this is the side that is facing the water, the east elevation. Potentially on that 3-story scheme, there, for the grand jury area, which could also potentially be used for other uses, but to have a nice window and a balcony on that side of the elevation, keeping the same themes from the front elevation, and also material wise, this envisions stucco for kind of this light cream color material, and then a standing seam metal roof. Very similar elevation here on the west elevation. So this would be facing the parking area. And this is the north elevation. So there were some comments yesterday about taking a closer look at the elevations from the street and potentially looking at this north elevation to make it a little bit more. Thank you, Judge. Okay. To make it a little bit more more detailed, more inviting. So we will work on that as well. And then again, these are the same 3D views that I showed yesterday. This would be a view from the southeast, looking into the plaza. This would be the community building, which isn't, again, it hasn't been advanced in design as of yet. So that hasn't been developed. It will be developed here shortly. And then this is a front elevation as you approach the county courthouse. So as we talked about a little bit yesterday, the schedule, we're just at the end here of schematic design. I think we have a little bit of work to do to make sure that we get a sign off on our schematic design level, modify that elevation to the 3-story option, and make some plan modifications based on your comments. But once we get approval on that, we'll move into design development, construction documents, and anticipate being through with construction documents and ready to bid in the first quarter of 2021. This also anticipates, I would say, at least a 2-month bidding and negotiation process with the general contractors, potentially a little bit longer than that, and then 18-month construction duration. So you'll be moving into your new building at the end of 2022. So that's the end of my presentation, and I guess, William, you had some other things that you wanted to.
Commissioner, we'll get to it. We will. Yes, sir. So, Paul. Perfect. That helps me. Okay, Paul, talk a little bit now about the team that we have brought together that's doing this project. There are 3 different folks that are working on it, and you want to talk a little bit about that, about your team and Architects.
Sure. So, as you know, we went through the process of submitting for RFQs and interviewing with you a little while back. But the team that we have working on this project from the design standpoint is the team that we presented. So PGAL and Architects are our partners on the architecture side. We are the contract holder, PGAL, and Architects is they're known for doing historic courthouses across the state of Texas, and they've got a lot of experience. We've got a lot of experience working with them, so that we're working in conjunction on the exterior design and as well as the interior design of the project. So we also have obviously just brought on the CM agent. So Broadus is part of the team.
Mike and Colton.
Yeah, so we have Michael Bishop and Colton Wood with Broadus in the room with us right now. So as I mentioned in my talk, they, over the last 6 or 7 weeks, I guess, they've been on board, have really jumped right in and given us as accurate as possible cost data that they could on this project. So they were pricing the drawings that you see in the background here, along with some specification information on what we anticipated at the time in terms of those interior finishes, the exterior materials, and things of that nature. So they will be continuing on in that role, and also pushing the schedule and making sure we're all doing our job. And then we have William Whitson here on board.
Yeah, and then you have the long-term recovery team, which John Crofton has both of the work on this project, and there's Deanna, the PIO, and the rest of the team. We're working auditor's office, the attorney. We're all kind of like one big happy family working together with this team. So the other thing I wanted you to talk a little bit about, Paul, was The best way to think about the project funding for this is in three pieces. One of the piece is held by the county, which is a grant from GLO. And then, of course, there's the county's piece for the courthouse. And then the third piece would be for the city hall. You want to kind of just talk a little bit about that?
You mentioned the grant from GLO. Is that a FEMA grant?
No, sir, it is not. No, sir, it is not. We have FEMA grants for the actual courthouse project. Yeah, and then there's a separate grant for the Celebration Plaza, which works in conjunction. Okay, but the actual courthouse is a combination of insurance, FEMA, and other private sector donations.
Right. And William, I know that you've been much more involved in the funding, part of it than I have. So maybe if I have questions, maybe you can answer them. But yeah, so we have, from the design standpoint, we have a contract with the county for the courthouse and the Celebration Plaza piece, as well as the community building. And then we have a separate contract with the city. So all along the whole process, we're keeping track of the time we're spending and our fees completely separately. And I know that that's one of the things that Courthouse is going to help us with along the way too, in terms of how we procure this project and make sure that any general contractor out there knows that we have these funding sources that they're going to also need to keep track of through construction. So it is quite of a complex arrangement, and William and I talk about that frequently and make sure that we're all on the same page. But we need to keep track of those funding sources and where the money's spent all the way along the way.
Great. So now, one of the things that you mentioned, and this was a big impression that, you guys laid out when you got the job, was this ain't your first rodeo. I mean, you've been doing courthouses all over the state. So talk a little bit about what kind of services and needs are going to be provided for in this project, and how that compares to some of your other experience around the state, and, kind of
Sure.
what you're seeing here.
Sure. Yeah, we've done several courthouses. We got one under construction in Grimes County right now that's just started up in this past year. But the departments and the arrangement of the building is very similar to some of the other counties that we've worked with, trying to create kind of the one-stop shop so that the public knows where they need to go for, to get records, to pay a fine, to do all of those things. So that's what we're trying to create here, keeping that first floor primarily where most of the public goes to do the day-to-day things that they need to do, keeping the courts up on the second floor. One of the other things too that is very important that I was talking to a couple of the commissioners about before this meeting was, how do you get prisoners in and out of the courtrooms? We want to make sure that that's a very secure pathway to get them up to the court and down back to the jail in an efficient manner, so that they don't come into contact with the public, they don't come into contact with staff. So we're keeping everybody in the building safe. So those are the primary things that we look at when we're designing a courthouse. And I think you've probably seen some of our other projects around the state and even other courthouses that were not designed by us. They use those same principles. So we're using our experience and Architectus's experience to create a floor plan that works well for you. And we want to go back and confirm that with each of the departments that we talked to early on in the programming process too.
Right, so the floor plans that are here are going to be tweaked a little bit. We're still not finished with them, and we are going to go back and talk to the departments again, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you're basically using your experience from seeing the workflow all over Texas in this design, is that correct?
Sure, definitely. But that being said, each county works a little bit differently. Each county functions a little bit differently. So that's why we want to have that close dialogue with you, close dialogue with each of the department heads and the departments to make sure that their department works well for them.
Great. All right. Let me just go ahead and ask you, we had some dialogue about parking yesterday. What's kind of the vision for the parking there with this plan?
So yeah, I did go back and do a little bit more research, Commissioner, on the parking. We do meet based on one parking space per 500 square feet, I believe, for the historic district guidelines. So we do meet that, but we want to go back and take another look at that based on your comments, making sure that it's enough parking for jury day and those kind of high traffic days.
All right, and then let me ask Broadus to come forward here. We've been kind of going back and forth on the numbers and trying to work them down as best we can. I think we're ended up somewhere right now around $398 a square foot. Talk to everyone and just kind of let them know what the value engineering process is all about that we've been going through, and a little bit about our add alternate approach, to where we're going to use that as a technique to further drive down the prices.
Absolutely. Several of the things that we've looked at as soon as we got our hands on the plans is the types of construction that were used, whether we were going with a metal frame with a stucco exterior, whether we were going to go with split face block on the front, whether we were going to use concrete tilt walls. And then we also had to look at what finishes were incorporated into the design plans. One of the things that we have in there now is we have some really deep foundations and footings. And in order to do that, we're trying to build the resiliency. Well, we just received the geotechnical report back late last week. And now after we review that, there may be some cost savings associated with that as well. So we're really looking at everything from the foundation all the way up to the roof on this. We've looked at several different roofing options. One of the things that we found with the tiles, if a hurricane comes, they're going to basically just be missiles. So we've decided to take the least cost alternative with that, put a standing seam metal roof on the building. It's going to give you good longevity. It's not going to come off when a hurricane comes through. It's going to be a good option. Doing all those things in combination with PGAL and Mr. Whitson, we've successfully gotten the project down. We trimmed about, I would say, $7 or $8 million worth of fat out of it, and got it down to where it needs to be. And now we're going to go back and basically take in the finishes and things that we might have been doing without, and putting this back in, adding in the square footages for the different offices, redoing a little bit of the programming phase of this whole project. Going to the bid alternates, there's some things that we may want in the project, and we're uncertain of what those are going to cost. So on bid day, we're going to put in bid alternates. We may have 3, we may have 10 bid alternates, and on bid day, we'll see exactly how much those options cost. If we come in and we have a really good bid day, we have a contractor that's hungry, he comes in and we get a better price than what we initially thought, maybe we can get 4 or 5 of those options. So that's just something we're going to continue to look at and work with the team on to figure out exactly, where we are now and where we need to be come bid day.
Because at the end of the day, we don't really know the price of this project until the bids come in.
That's correct.
But we can use our experience to estimate. Talk a little bit about your model that we've been working with, and then what we're doing to drive that down and get all the savings we can.
Absolutely. Sure. So what we're trying to do using the model that we use is we have within the broadest companies, we have 5 different companies. One of those happens to be an at-risk construction company. So we're using our estimator that not only works on our program management and our CMA side, but he also works with our general contracting side. That way we're getting real-time prices off projects that we're actually bidding. We can reach out to subcontractors. We can see exactly, is it what's more expensive now? Is it steel? Is it concrete? What those materials are, the cost of labor. We've done several projects, both from the PM side and from the construction side here in the area locally. And we can take those figures that we've received from our subcontractors, be able to apply the appropriate regional allowance for those factors, because a project here is going to be different than a project in San Antonio. A project here is going to be different than a project in Corpus Christi. There's certain regional factors that you have to take into consideration when doing that, and that's what we've been doing to date.
All right, well, either one of you take this. Any other thing that you think is important for the public to know at this point before I go on with some of the other points I have to make? Go ahead.
I've got one, just recalling the question that you had about funding, that knowing that the idea all along was to have the same design team, design both the city hall and the county courthouse, the same contractor, hopefully build both the city hall and the county courthouse to kind of get some economies of scale. That's what I was thinking of. So to really to kind of get the best bang for your buck, that would be the preferred method of procuring the general contractor for this. And so we're going to work with Broadus and obviously the city and the county to get both of these projects, or all three of the projects really, including Celebration Plaza and the community building, to bid out at the same time. Knowing that there are going to be at least two separate contracts, what we may need to do is ask for separate bids on the city and the county portions, but then potentially a deductive alternate, or a deduct to combine the two if the same company gets both of them. So that's what we've been talking about internally, and I think that's what our approach is going to be as we get this ready to go out to bid.
Let me tie that together. So when he mentions the economies of scale, if we bid this and we get one price from a general contractor, the way it'll be set up is we'll have two different bid tabs. The bid tabs will be one for the city hall and then one for the county courthouse. And then, we'll have three separate bid tabs. The third one will be for the plaza that kind of ties both of the projects together. Doing it that way, we're able to get economies of scale. If we're doing the constructability the same on the city hall and the county courthouse, when he comes in with his sheetrock contractors or his framing contractors, they're going to be able to order their supplies in bulk. The more they can order, the better their price is. The longer they can keep their guys on site, the better our price is going to be. Those are all things we're doing to make these projects more efficient and more effective. So I think the more that we can all work together as a team, the better off we're going to be.
So again, just to kind of summarize how the team is working, the county is working with PGAL on the design, using all of their experience, and then Broadus is helping us do the testing of prices, the estimating. They're also going to be then taking, once the design is done and you're finished with all your work, these guys are going to scrub it, and they're going to make sure that when we put that bid out, it is squeaky clean. And then we try to drive down, we won't eliminate them all, but we will drive down the need for change orders, so that basically when we get that price on bid day, we're going to be pretty darn close to what we ultimately will pay. And then once that contractor is hired and on the job and working, these guys are going to be our little soldiers that go out there and look over their shoulder, make sure they're doing everything right, all the QA work along with PGAL. And then we will definitely be working the administrative side with Jackie, and Broadus will be helping us with making sure we keep all the funding correct, and things like checking the Davis-Bacon wage stuff and all the paperwork that goes with that. I mean, there's a lot that goes into spending federal money. So that's how the team is put together, and that's how we're going to be proceeding to make sure we have the best project that we can get at the best price. All right. Okay. So let me, thank you, gentlemen. Let me just mention a few other things that we're obligated to talk about today. One, as I mentioned earlier, is the NEPA process, the National Environmental Policy Act. And that is where we are trying to make sure that we have a good, clean site, which we believe we do. We already have the draft report in hand. Mott McDonald was procured for that purpose. Is there a Mott McDonald rep? Nope, they didn't make it. Okay, well, that's okay, because we know what they're doing, and we actually have a copy of their pamphlet and brochure about that. This pamphlet will be placed online, the county's website, possibly the city's website, and then copies will be made available in the judge's office. Any member of the public can come by and pick one up and look it over at any time they would like. And obviously, if you have questions, the long-term recovery team hotline number is still active and open and working. That number is 361-790-9496. And if you call that number, if you have any questions about this project, about NEPA, or any other matter, we'll be more than happy to try and find out the answer and get back to you as soon as we can. We'll also have a fact sheet that we are drafting for this project, and we're hoping to post that online tomorrow. We were talking a little bit with the financial advisor. Right now, I think your tax rate is around 5.3 cents. And the potential impact if you went to the full $24.2 million bond would be around 6.9 cents. So 1.5, 1.6 cents, depending on where you ended up and where you directed that it go, commissioners. So I think we're in pretty good shape there. That closes the gap between insurance, federal funding, and the cost of the project. And so now it's all kind of queued up and in the public's hands. And with that, I'd like to see if there are any questions from the commissioners. And then we'll go to the public, and then we'll see if we can respond to any of the chat line questions that have come in.
Mr. Woodson,
Sir.
you throw out these numbers, but what size building are we building? Are we talking about a 55,000?
55 to 56,000 square foot. Yes, sir.
Okay. So everything that you've mentioned here today is based on a 55 to 56,000.
Yes, sir.
Building. On the
As of yesterday.
On the site layout, is there any particular reason why the courthouse, which is where we hold court on prisoners and whatnot, why it's farther away from the jail than the city hall is?
You got that one, John?
Well, we can sure trade property with the city because it's in the same block. My point is, why would we move it way down on the far end down there when? Well, he's not here. I just don't understand why.
It was the ownership that drove the design decision, and
They've
that's,
already acquired the property and we can swap property with them. I don't see that as a problem, really.
that would be,
That's any advantage or disadvantage that just.
You have a problem with where the courthouse is? I raised that issue once before, if it was more in line, if we swapped the properties, it would put us almost across from the Sallyport area.
Exactly.
And it would make the opportunity to look at a enclosed walkway or something a whole lot more reasonable.
Exactly.
Not be.
I just asked,
What
kind of, what is the reason? And the only reason I think, because we didn't own that property, but since the city has acquired it, we flip it around to the side, which makes another question I have.
All right.
Is the architecture on the city's comparable to our architecture?
yes,
Going to be the same basic design?
yes.
Okay.
And Commissioner, if we were to swap properties, it would completely change some of the work that you've done in, is there any impact for that?
We did, I guess, we did look at several different configurations on the overall site, whether the courthouse would be on the original courthouse block. We looked at several different configurations, and this is just the one that the group decided on, and including the judge.
You might have a question because the utilities that run in the street that the cities, I don't know that they're going to take the utilities out. Between the courthouse and the city hall, there's an existing street that has utilities. And where would that fall if the courthouse is bigger than theirs?
Commissioner, there's the only thing in that, in the Concho Street right away is a 42-inch storm drain, and the city's addressing that. They're going to remove that and relocate it.
Okay, well, my comment was that you'd kind of have to look at that to see if the courthouse would even go there.
Exactly.
If you have the room.
Because right now, if you look at the city's plan, it is right up onto our our half of the ownership of the Concho right away. So they've moved their building right up to that spot. And there's where the 42
What
is.
are the different dimensions in the
Theirs is only half of a property lot plus half of the right of way. Ours is what, 2 or 3 acres or 4 acres.
Yeah, I would think that might be the problem.
And we wanted the county's building to be on county property.
It
That's-
would be,
Well,
on-
he's
it
just
would be
saying
on
that
county
it's
property.
swapped.
We swapped,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's a smaller lot. We're
No, no, no.
better
No,
off
no,
where,
No, I'm talking about a swap to take care,
Equal-
Yeah.
he's just flipping it.
equal swap. They can put theirs on the same amount of ground that they have now. And I would suggest to you that the property that we're giving them is probably a better piece of property than what they bought.
I'll talk to you about that. We'll
He's talking
debate
about
that.
just flipping the plan.
I'm just talking about, well, there was a comment made by Commissioner Castro at the last time, or maybe he just made it to me. Why not have us facing to the north rather than to the south? The only way you see the front of our building is to come around from behind it right there
Well,
and walk to it more than likely.
the focus is really on the plaza in this
I
design.
understand. I understand.
That,
Plaza's not going to move one way or the other. I mean,
Well, right.
it'll shift one way back and forth.
but to have a place for the community to gather and to be able to see the front
Yeah.
of all 3 buildings
Well,
was
you kind of
was
have
kind
to
of
weigh, and probably somebody else could do it better than us, do you like it better if you see the front of the courthouse when you drive by, or when you basically have to walk down in the plaza to get that view? If you drive around the block, it's no different than if you leave here, you come around and drive down this road that runs back behind this building. And
Right.
is that what you want to see when you're driving down the street? It's just
well, we can address.
something to weigh between, I don't know how you would do a
But the-
poll to see what most people think the best look is. But
The only reason that you've been given here today, though, is because we didn't own that piece on the far end. I don't see that as a problem. I really don't. Public owns it all now, whether it's the city or the county.
Okay.
And seeing as how we're furnishing most of the parking space, it's kind of interesting to me that, the city has a requirement when you build a new building, you have to have so many spaces
Yeah.
for parking. Well, we're furnishing all of their parking spaces for them.
I think the city has some stake in the Celebration Plaza portion, do they not? No. Okay. Again,
just- just a question.
that's a funding question
Just a
that you all know better than me. Okay.
Okay, the third floor plan that we got right there
Yes,
is
sir.
for all these floors of the same size, square footage?
The first and second floor are approximately the same size. The third floor is smaller.
So it's going to look completely different than the way the rendition is right here, right?
It will look different, yes.
It's going to kind of be scrunched in.
No, we're gonna take the design that we did for the 2-story version, and we're gonna update that for the 3-story, and we'll come back and give you another look at it.
Okay.
One of the things that, before we leave the subject of the Sallyport, one of the things I thought about on the Sallyport was, number one, is it going to be covered and is it going to be substantially fenced? Just the basic issues.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Is it gonna
actually,
be-
it's right now, the current plan, the way we've shown it, it is not covered, but it will have a fence around it and be completely separate from the judge and elected officials.
If we do swap with the city and if it does, if it's not going to cost a whole lot more to do, I think that's a good idea. There may be other factors involved that I'm not aware of, but from the aspect of public safety and prisoner security, it makes a lot of sense to do that. Also, the fact that people coming down 35 into town would not see the back of our building. They might see the back of City Hall, but they would not see the back of our building. And both those are they're nice things to have. If it's going to cost us another $1 million, I'm not interested in doing it probably.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that's something we do need to look at. That's my very first question, actually. And then what are we in the question of the Sallyport and everything? Are we going to have a separate elevator for the prisoners?
Yes.
Is it going to be like a freight elevator where we can bring freight up? Or is it going to be, is it required to be a special type of elevator?
I think generally for the prisoner elevator, you don't want to mix that population with anybody else, not with freight, or any,
Are we gonna
particularly
have a
any
freight
staff.
elevator?
The judges and elected officials elevator typically doesn't get used as often in the back, or the staff
Yeah.
elevator. So that could potentially double as a freight elevator.
I had I'm sorry, I don't mean to, if y'all have anything.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I got some more questions.
Now, what areas in this floor plan have been expanded with the removal of the commissioner's court and the other thing that you put on the third floor? For an example, as district court and district clerk and county clerk been given greater amounts of room.
Yes, I believe so.
And you got a larger JP court, or at least
Correct.
shaped different.
Correct. Yeah, we did really, to get down to the square footage that we showed yesterday, we had to cut from each department.
So we put some of that back.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think
Now, how big is the commissioner's courtroom going to be?
Commissioner's courtroom
Relative to this building, relative to this.
I think it's about 2,000 square feet, if I remember right, in the 3-story plan.
So that's not a lot more than what we had in the old courthouse.
I'll have to go back and look at that. I'm
Well,
not
the
Well,
sure.
reason
that's approximately the same size, probably a little bit bigger than what we had in the original building over here.
Yeah, but it's not going to be
Okay.
much bigger.
But
Well, the
It's
reason
not going to
I
be
ask
as big
that-
as this
The
room.
district courtroom was a lot bigger than,
Well,
if you look
Well,
at
and
the.
of course, we can move whenever we have things, but you know, you've been here enough times to see that whenever we have commissioner's court, we normally have a lot of people in
Yeah.
there.
Right.
And you know, this is certainly unusual because people have to stand out in the halls.
Right.
But again, I think the commissioner's courtroom need to be the key to the courthouse.
Okay.
You know, because I mean, that's why you had it originally, was for the commissioner's court and things like that. Nothing
Right.
against the district judges or the JPs or any of that stuff.
Right.
But I don't think that the commissioner's court needs to be treated like a secondary room.
Commissioner, the plans that they've got there, they show that the seating capacity in that room is, for the two district courts and the other court, 53 people. Now, I don't know how big, because I haven't looked at the plans on the top floor of the commissioner's court. I
Yeah.
don't know, is that same comparable size?
It's a little bit smaller than the district.
Those two
and county
rooms were
courts.
figured at around 1,650 square feet for those rooms. If that's what I saw there.
Let me get you numbers on those. I think what I should do is come up with a comparison of what was in the old courthouse, what your current situation is in terms of square footage on rooms and departments, and then what's in the new plan, and then we can go through and compare, and if you have adjustments that you want us to make, we can make those.
I had a couple of other questions here. What is a standing seam roof? I'm not a roofer, I'm an electrician. You know,
A standing seam roof is a metal roof, basically. So
Is it like a,
If
okay,
you see
so,
a house in a subdivision with a galvanized or metal roof.
right,
it's more or
okay.
less-
So it's 12.
so it's a very durable roof.
Okay, good. What,
yeah.
okay, so, and then I had on your bidders, whenever you go out for bids, whenever you go out for requests for qualifications and all of that stuff for your bidders.
Mhm.
I realize that anybody has the right to bid on this. But
Right.
for this community, this is a major expense. It's going to be here, you know, going to be here for a long time, God willing. Before you qualify or before you make a decision, are you going to go and physically see 2 or 3 of the projects that they have done, that you will select which projects to go see? And, you know, I want us to get a highly qualified bidder. And, you know, to spend, 47 million or 50 million or whatever it is we're going to end up spending on this thing. I want to see what they did in Harlingen or someplace, everything.
Yeah, we have to follow all of our own bid rules and the state and federal bid rules. And we are going to have a two-part bid process. We will have, the initial bid that will come in. And then once we winnow it down, I think we can then, do some interviews and go take a look at projects and things like this. And in the specifications, we're going to ask them to send photos and all that kind of thing in it. So gentlemen, does that sound consistent with how you've done it before?
So bidding using with the new 2 CFR and everything come out on this, you have to take in the lowest and best bid. In order to do that, you can't make it qualifications only based. What you can do is, number one, they have to have the bonding capacity to be able to bid the project. This is a larger project. You're not going to get someone that, you're not going to get your residential guy or someone that's not qualified to do it because they wouldn't be able to go out and get the bond to do it. They're also going to have to carry a certain level of insurance that some of the people that, are less qualified, they may not have that level of insurance. We can put in things like you have to have past experience with certain types of structures. The one thing that is unfortunate is we're not able to actually do interviews or go meet with the projects or anything like that. We can write our specifications in a manner to say that.
Then how, if you can't go look at the project, how can you say the lowest and best bid?
That's how we would love to do it, but per federal regulations, using the funds, we're not allowed to do that.
So you just do it over the phone.
A few years ago, the judge and I went with a group of people to one of the newest courthouses that time in the state was in Zapata. So we went down there and it was a few months old and we walked in and the first thing that we saw was a marble floor with a crack going across it. Brand new building. A crack in a marble floor running completely across the main lobby. And so we said, oh, wow. And then we found out that all of the stuff, it wasn't big enough the day they moved in. And, they said the bidder that got it was historically all over the state of Texas is a low bidder. And they picked the low bidder and that's what they got. So, I don't know how you protect against that. But that
We can ask for references for past projects and we could call. We can't do it like we would love to with a CMA process. Actually sit down.
Well,
and,
commissioners can go do it though, can't they?
Sir?
Commissioners can go see what projects are
Yes, sir.
because we're private citizens.
Why are we restricted on this particular building to federal regulations, like you said, only because of the FEMA amount of money?
Yes, sir.
$2.6 million out of 22?
And GLO.
Well, the GLO is the plaza.
Yep.
I'm talking about the building.
Building.
The FEMA funds tied into it.
It seemed like a drawback.
If there's any FEMA funds tied to it, any federal funds tied to it, that's what you have to do. It's not ideal, but it's the regulations. Exactly right. We could do it however we wanted to.
Well, you still have the plaza.
Well, but
It's a separate project.
a much smaller building.
No, not really.
That's just something you have to weigh before the bid process or arrange the money.
But do you consider that a serious flaw in the process, having to take the lowest bidder, irrespective of what their qualifications are?
My personal opinion is yes. My personal opinion is I like using a CMAR. You get the contractor on board earlier. He helps through the design process. You're getting real pricing that he's going to be stuck to all the way through. I understand why they put it in place at the federal level, but I like the state laws that we have in Texas allowing us to use construction manager at risk.
William, is there any chance we can get FEMA to back off of that requirement?
No.
So we're looking at.
We've made this choice years ago and we have to follow through. Now we can ask for plenty of illustrations and we will. I apologize. I thought we had a bifurcated process, but if we have to take it based on what they submit, then we've done this plenty enough times. We know what to ask for.
Well, my biggest concern is that we get a lowest bid, and if we can't, lowest best bid, I have no idea what the term best means then. But, you know, if it's going to cost us a little more money to be able to go and select the builder that we want, it might be worth considering. You know, I mean, it really may, because another thing that comes with the FEMA money is that you've got a lot more restrictions. Of course, we have Davis-Bacon, and we have a lot of just things that go with all construction projects. But, you know, we have the possibility we get halfway through the project and FEMA pulls their money away.
So one of the things by lowest and best, just to kind of explain that, is, you know, we can ask their litigation history. If they have any pending litigation or they have any other projects that were under litigation, even though they're the lowest, that may exclude them from being the best bidder. If you call and
How do you check that?
we
would
make
ask
them
for it.
submit that on
Yeah.
we make them
The
submit that, and it's notarized.
And how do you check that? Because I'm a notary and I wouldn't notarize it unless I could check it. But, you know, if you got things like the thing in Zapata, you know, they're the lowest best bid, and they've got a courthouse that was undersized, which is not necessarily the builder's fault, but, you know, they've got a cracked floor on the second year. What wall's going to crack on the fourth year? I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
I'm concerned about that. And I don't know, Commissioner, this public hearing, we can talk about what we want to talk about, but
Well, I think a lot of that stuff is in your procedure of whatever you put, when you put it out for bids, like say, if you can make the people produce that kind of information, that you do have some chance to check it out.
Yeah, we do. And we will do everything we can. We've learned a lot in this process. These guys, how many years you've been doing federal bids?
Since 2005.
Okay.
Okay,
And
let's,
So,
I listened to the presentation yesterday, and we were talking about a 46,000 square foot building was going to cost between 21 and $22 million. Today, you're saying we can build a 55,000 square foot building for $22 million. What happened overnight?
no, we're not saying, we never said that for 22 million. We said that there's going to be an upcharge from that estimate. And it could be as high as 10, but we don't know. We're going to go back through our model. We're going to go do the value engineering, and, you know, it
We're
may
talking
end
about
up being
400
5 million. I don't know.
$398 here earlier in your presentation today.
Right.
At 55,000 square feet, that's $22 million.
No, you have to add it on top of the figure that was yesterday's 20. So it'll be 22 plus another, whatever that number runs out to be. Be another at least $5 or $6 million
So
more.
when you use the 398, that was referring to the cost on the 46,000 square feet?
Yes.
See, I tried to clarify that earlier when I made the comment to you. You start throwing out different numbers, and I don't know what the conditions are on.
The best estimate we have is 398 a square foot. We're going to do our best to design this project to drive that number down, but that's our best estimate at this
Okay,
moment.
let's take the 398. Let's just
That's
round it off.
construction cost.
Let's round it off to $400 a square foot.
Right.
55,000, that's $22 million.
But then you have to add your soft costs. You have the engineering, architect, you have other allowances for equipment, you know.
In the 398 is, you've got overheads, the other expenses, the architect, CMA, plus there's overhead for the general contractor. Plus in this currently, there is contingency in there because this is unknowns. So those numbers came up to the 398. That's how the 398 evolved. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the new 55,000 square foot building. We're going to use the finishing specs that we had applied towards the 46,000 square foot building. Then we're going to look at our number, and we're going to look at it, and we're going to go back and we're going to evaluate it, that what can we add to this building back into the building and still stay within the budget. So that is going to be the plan going forward. That is what we are going to start doing in the next couple of days.
But the
price is built in layers, Charlie.
Right.
It's hard construction costs, but then you have to add your soft costs. You have to add your furnishings. You have to add your
Give
IT.
us a number for the complete job.
And if you go back to my slide from yesterday, it was all broken out.
Yeah, and yesterday you said it was gonna be somewhere close to $498 a square foot. That's what you said yesterday. And this is $100 a square foot less. for more buildings.
It's just hard
Okay. So
construction.
498 was all cost.
Yes, you have to add all these various costs in.
Is that correct?
398
It's 398 is without your soft.
Without soft costs.
That's without.
Right.
Without your CMA.
It's construction costs first, and then you build in your soft costs. Then you had your IT equipment and all the other things that have to go.
That is all the cost.
Whenever we
Right.
ask our finance,
398. It's 366 with construction only and 398 with the soft costs added in.
whenever we ask our bond counsel yesterday to go out, we asked him to look at $10 million more than what your initial estimate.
Correct.
was. Okay. So your initial estimate included all costs, all known costs,
All known costs
all known costs.
for the 46,000 square feet.
No, I'm talking about yesterday for the, whatever it was. Yeah, the 46,000.
Right, and then you add the other.
We added another $10 million.
Right.
So we're looking right now, what'd you say, Commissioner? How much was it?
Actually, yesterday, what we did is a notice of intent to issue certificates of obligation not to exceed $34 million, $34 million.
No, 24.2 million.
It's
34.250,
Correct.
34,250,000. That's the official notice that went out.
24.
No, 24.2 million.
No, that was,
Jackie?
14.2.
2 plus the 10,
50, and then they added 10, so it was
Yeah, but
24.
24
The
point,
deal was to refinance existing one. What was the total?
That was
included?
only 3 million, a little over $3 million.
okay,
that we
I'm
were
sorry. That
refinancing.
runs the project up to over $34 million though, because that doesn't include the
No,
9.9
no, no, no.
or 9.6 that we're getting on the other side.
Right. I think that's what you're looking
Yeah.
at is the additional
And
insurance.
what it did, it
and
ran the total
FEMA.
cost of the project up over $30 million if we added that additional 10 million to it.
if we did, yes.
The resolution
Well,
that,
that-
We
that's
we
my
don't
last.
have the exact,
We-
we don't have the exact cost yet on the 55,000 square foot
Yeah,
building.
I understand.
We're working through that. We were at 398 on the 46,000 square foot building. Are we going to need the entire $10 million? I don't think that we're going to. We're going to look at it and we're not going to spend any more than we have to on this.
Okay.
And that's part of our due diligence in running estimates at every stage along the way to figure out exactly what our costs are. And now with the changes going to 55,000, I can't say right now that it's going to stay right at 398. I don't know. It's
Might
going
go
to
to
be.
212?
I wish. I wish it would. I can't say exactly what that is. There's going to be a little bit of deviation in that number as we go up to 55,000 square feet. Do I think it's going to be the full 10? I do not.
Well, that brings us to my last question. Timing situation. Now, Paul, you mentioned complete plans ready to go out for a bid by the construction at what time?
In the first quarter of next year.
Now, that's when we start construction.
No,
No, that's when the plans.
that's when the plans will be ready.
Well, in meeting with our county auditor and whatnot, we have a timing problem. In order to borrow money, which yesterday we set that clock in motion by that intent.
Okay.
The notification in the newspaper. And I think that is how many days? 75 days?
45, well,
No.
for sale,
To sell the bonds, to move forward, to sell the COs.
45 days,
20, 45?
45, yes.
Okay.
We're supposed to sell on the 31st of August.
So we're in the unenviable position here, guys, of starting that process and not having a number, and probably won't have a number. Now you're saying until the first quarter of next year?
Yes. Not a hard number, not a hard bid number, but as I mentioned, we're gonna have estimates based on the progress of design at every stage.
Well,
So
I don't mean to be rude or anything, but we had an estimate last year of $265 a square foot. Well, we see where that went.
That's 2 years ago.
Oh, that was last October.
Right.
That was
And
last
they-
October.
But those numbers we were pulling from contractors 2 years ago.
Well,
And it's gone up 30%.
I understand that, but I'm telling you that the information flow has been a little bit spotty here. And we've got a problem because we're in budget time right now. And we've got a time deadline. We can't go by September 15, right? We got to come up with a number.
Right.
Okay. Fair enough. Just want everybody to understand that.
We estimated high.
Good.
Well, that's not good for the taxpayer.
Also, let's see. Is the 3-story going to be a problem for the Heritage District or whatever it is downtown? Is that going to be a problem? Going 3 stories? And the reason I ask that is because about 4 or 5 years ago, we had, wasn't it an apartment complex or something that wanted to go downtown and they wanted to go 3 stories. So is that going to be a problem with the Heritage District?
I don't think so. We will broach that subject with them. We haven't started our Heritage District review. Obviously, the city has been involved in the process of designing the city hall as well. So we can ask them about that.
One last question.
Yes, sir.
If the city and the county are going to use everything the same,
Mhm.
what happens whenever there are conflicts? Because dealing with the city and the city dealing with the county, there's always some issue that comes up and is a problem. Who's going to be the mediator?
We have an MOU with them that provides for a management committee and a mediation process, which we should be able to work out. And so far, it hadn't been a problem, but
What kind of conflict are you, I mean, if they're ordering their, they're designing them to look the same and use the same products, they're designing theirs, we're designing theirs, what conflict do you think you foresee?
I don't necessarily think there'll be a conflict, but if there is a conflict,
I
maybe
mean, the only conflict that I could see might be that they decide they don't want it to look like ours.
yeah.
I don't, doesn't, that's
But I think
between
that's
them. I don't really
decided,
have a
right?
problem with that.
So the question is, if we have an issue, we have something in place to handle that issue.
that's correct.
Okay. That's my question. Brother.
Well, I'll throw something out that some people
Okay.
won't like, but I think it needs to be looked at when we're looking at what we've got that, okay, we talked about looking at this, the 3-story one. And the other thing that I brought up yesterday, when we had the 2-story plan, is that the law tells us when the county gets to 50,000 people, the JPs have to be in their own precinct. I personally think that we should, at the same time, look at the 2-story building and separately build the JP's facilities in their own precincts.
Go ahead and do that out of this particular bond issue.
Yeah.
That'd be a bad idea.
Well, I mean, it's a potentially a big difference in the 2-story model and the
Sure, definitely.
3-story model.
And as part of the process of looking at, cutting costs and a less expensive building, we were kind of brainstorming some things to that effect of, are there departments that are in the courthouse plan now that don't necessarily need to be there? Or is there someone else that we could
I just think
put,
we need to.
in a less expensive building?
We need to explain to the public, I think, however many options. Like I said,
Right.
I said some time ago when nobody else liked it, that our third option should be that we buy the shopping center and expand to whatever we need into the other buildings. The public might like the cost of that better than any of the other options. I just think we need to be open as to what the options dollar wise are to the public.
Right.
And to me, those really are 3 stories, 2 stories with
Sure.
other facilities or this place.
We can certainly look at that. And as we talked about a little bit before the meeting, having, if we build the courthouse with the JP courts in it now, when they do move out, that allows you for additional expansion within the building, or allows you to potentially, bring the tax office into the building, or other departments that might work well in the courthouse.
When we hit that 50,000, we not only have to move it to their precincts, we have to have 4 instead of 2. So.
Right. Well, that's certainly something we could look at.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, I'm going to then turn and see if there's any questions from people here. And then Colin, if you have questions that have come in from the chat, we'll take those next. So any members of the public here that would like to come forward and ask a question? Yeah. Right.
Am I going first or is someone else asking? Okay. Do you want to let her go first since she's the current commissioner? All right.
Oh, are you talking, I just,
Yeah.
I
Go ahead,
said the
Wendy.
comment to you could have just read it for me. All I was saying, I wanted to just second everything Commissioner Casterline just said, especially looking hard at staying in the current building. I know it's not a popular option. It's too small, but that combined with being able to move some of the functions off-site, it might be a much less expensive alternative. And this is an awfully expensive building we're talking about. That was all
Okay.
I had.
All right.
I'm not sure if I should ask this of the commissioners or of William. I'm Pat Rousseau. I'm a resident, former employee here, and I'm commissioner-elect for Precinct 3. My question, and when I first saw the diagrams yesterday, the facade of the front of the courthouse, the Celebration Plaza, there are 2 nice grassy areas, planted areas, and there is a community building that I'm not sure what its dimensions are, but it looks like it's going to totally block part of the facade of the lovely new courthouse and probably the city hall. What is the purpose of that community building? And what are the dimensions of it? I understand it's going to be paid with the grant, with the Celebration Plaza. I think that's what William said. I'm just curious about it. Thank you.
The community building, which is set up to be a place for organizations, groups, things like that, have a place to have a meeting, is 3,500 square feet for the meeting area, which should be a little larger than this space here, right? And it'll have 2 bathrooms and a utility room. All the utilities for the plaza, the parking lot lights, irrigation and sprinkler and stuff for the public area will be in that community building. It's be totally separate from the courthouse itself. So it's.
Wasn't that recommended by somebody some federal agency to make our appeal for funds for the courthouse more pleasing to them?
I'm not sure. William, you have that answer?
William, wasn't that something that?
Yeah, we, like I said, we received the $53.8 million grant from GLO through the CBD GDR. And by law, not one penny of that money can be used on the courthouse or the city hall. And so our dilemma was, how do we take advantage of at least a $4 million zero match grant and make it work with what we were needing to do? And we found a way. And the purpose, as John said, is to help, have a place for the public to meet and conduct its business, and also, make a rather interesting area for the community to focus for future celebrations. And so we kind of dubbed it at this point Celebration Plaza, but you can call it whatever you like when we get it built.
Can you go into, there are other possibilities of uses that people might not even think of, or maybe there are courthouse related functions that could be,
Yes, you have to be careful about that because of the government restrictions from the GLO money. But our desire is to have public functions in there, and basically anything that you guys are involved in that's supported by the public can take place in that, and we'll schedule it like any other community space.
Sorry, while I have you here, no, it's fine, I can do it. Since you're talking about that we're gonna have limited use because of the GLO funds. So will we be able to use that building to select, maybe a grand jury or something like that where we need 150 people?
Yes, that was part of the other use, that you could do that. I mean, if it's not always scheduled and tied up all the time where the public can't use it, yeah. But yeah, we can from time to time utilize it as an overflow and that kind of thing.
Great. And I just wanted to make just one statement. I would encourage you to think forward for maybe the next 20 years. And I understand the argument that a two-story building would help now. And I understand that the JPs will need to at some point leave. But if there are 50,000 people in this county, we will need more space in the courthouse. So if we take the JPs out, we can repurpose that. We might need another courtroom at some point. So it would be good to already have that here. Thank you.
Other comments, questions before we go to the chat?
I have one question. When you talk about keeping this space, are you talking about just this space that we're in or part of this other space down here?
the owner of the whole thing has approached me twice about, and I suggested in the court that we look into it. And this is one of the facilities that was on the tax rolls for $2.5 million. They have raised his appraisal to $8 million. So he's a willing seller.
But I mean, just the part that we're in, not part
All
of
of
the
it,
other.
the whole
All of
thing.
it,
The whole thing.
All of it, parking lots, all the way to the other end, everything.
Okay. All right. Do we have questions on chat line? Nothing from the public. Okay. 20 viewers, no questions. Okay. Welcome.
Comment about this whole building strip and while the price sounds attractive, we all know this one's leaked like a sieve since we moved in. If the whole strip is like that because it's a 40-year-old building, it may not be where we want to put the money right now either. There's maintenance on it.
Shopping centers are notoriously built cheap. If you look at this facade, you look at this buildings, they're made to go up and they only have about a 30-year shelf life. This building is 10 years past the shelf life at this point. Because people get tired of these things and they want to knock them down and rebuild them in another configuration. So
Just remember, we work for the public.
I
I'm just saying, we need to tell them all the options.
And part of that is giving the public good value for their money.
Okay, commissioners, this is a challenging project, one that we've worked on for quite some time. There have been a lot of shifts and changes over time, but we've stayed after it. We are where we are at the doorstep. Please feel free to get with the judge. If you have any other questions now, we'll try and entertain them. If not, I don't know who needs to officially close this out,
I
but
do.
okay,
I got.
sir.
Okay, assuming everything goes as we've laid it out here today,
Yes, sir.
okay. What money have we received in our coffers to start paying bills for this project?
We have been awarded the FEMA money. That is a reimbursement. You have to spend it to get it reimbursed. We also have insurance. They are waiting for us to have contracts before they issue the money to us. So at this point, we have obligations and we have
Right.
money that has been obligated for, but that's
But we'll be
right at
reimbursed
10
for
million.
that.
I'm sorry?
Right.
We'll be reimbursed for
Correct.
any out-of-pocket
Yes,
expenses
sir.
right now.
For up to what FEMA has said the project was, yes.
Sure.
Jack, to sum it up, based on the numbers that I've heard today, if we're talking about a 55,000 square foot building, let's just round it off and say $500 a square foot. Soft cost, hard cost, all the costs in it, okay? You're looking at $27,500,000. Between the FEMA money that we've got and the other grant monies that we've received and the insurance money, we've got about 10 million. So it'd be a net $17.5 million would be spent above and beyond the resources that we have. That's money that we would have to issue COs on. Now, that's based on the numbers that I've heard today. Great time to be borrowing money if you have to borrow. I think Alma Cartwright can attest to that because she invests our money out there and you're not getting much for it, are you? But it still will be a huge commitment. But I would say this, just I guess what, 2 or 3 weeks ago in the newspaper, the city issued their intent to borrow, what, a little over $20 million, wasn't it, Mr. Probst?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. They weren't blessed with as much insurance money as we got, but they're only building half the size of building that we are. You can look at it this way. We had a situation where we had an old courthouse 60 years old or worse. It needed to go. It had all kinds of problems. It was, the maintenance thought it was horrendous every year. So at least we're going to finance it at a great time. And we do have the first 10 million paid from grant monies that come in that are available to us and insurance money, which we paid for the insurance. So there's that's the bright side of where we are right now.
It's about a 45% discount for more building.
The
One
bad
way to
part is
look
it won't
at
be
it.
finished until the end of 2022, right?
The end of 22.
Maybe I'll still be alive.
Yeah, oh, you trust me, we'll be on the schedule.
Can I pop in for one more comment?
You have a comment? Yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
do.
ma'am.
I just wanted to say, when I say I agree with Commissioner Casterline, I personally hope we'll be able to build this thing. It looks beautiful and we'd rather have a big courthouse and I'd rather be able to plan for 30 years out. But I think Commissioner Casterline made a good point that we owe the public, the opportunity to review all of the options that we have, even if we don't think some of them are all that attractive. They might like them better than we do. So I would just like to make sure we really don't leave any stones unturned and look into things like staying in the current office. I don't want to stay in the current offices, and I agree, it's a strip mall. It's not going to last forever. But everybody has a right to see what our options are, and I just want to make sure they get analyzed and publicized.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's why we are holding this public hearing. This was one of the requirements of the federal money and also a requirement of NEPA. So we are, trying to follow through on that. And of course, the obligation, this is one of the largest decisions that you as a commissioner court can make, one of the largest decisions that the public can make about where their home will be. Your home was destroyed by Harvey. And now we are where we are. We've done the best with what we knew and what the process provided. So we are at the cusp of being able to do something like the project we presented. And we'll certainly write up the other options and share those and have that dialogue. We need to do it quickly.
That $8 million that Mr. Castelline mentioned, it's still going to stay on the tax rolls if we don't buy it too.
Anything else?
That's all I have, sir.
A motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
We're done.